Today I'm going to show you how I upcycled a shelving unit with fixed shelves and turned it into a shelving unit with adjustable shelves. Let me show you where it's going in the house and how I did it. So this is my office, and just off it is a plant room that houses all the gubbins that runs the house. And I'm going to put the shelves in here where my ironing board is, between the water tank and ventilation unit, but I'll have to cut the shelves down as they're a little too wide. So these are the original shelves. They've got 4 slats each, and they're joined on the underside with smaller pieces of wood, which have been glued and stapled. Unfortunately, I can't just trim a little off each end, so what I'm having to do is prise out all the staples. Once that's done, I can cut through the glue joint with a saw. Then I can start to reassemble them. So back in the workshop, and I decided that the supports underneath the shelves at the ends, these chappies, are just too horrible and too tatty. So I'm not going to use those. I shall cut some new ones. And I found some very suitable softwood. They're actually bed slats. There's 3 short ones and there's a much longer one, but there's sufficient here to get 10 lengths the same as this from them. So all I'm going to do is use one of these as a guide, line it up at the very edge. Okay, so let's go back to the saw, set up a stop and cut all these. Well, now, having separated all the slats, the next thing is to measure them and to trim the end off. So I want these to be 70 centimetres. So all I've got to do now is to chop this end off. Now, I'm not going to bother marking them all because I know that they all are exactly the same length. Right, I'm all set. I've got my stop block in the right place, so all I have to do is to offer up the slats and cut. Time to sand the ends of all the slats and also the cross pieces that go underneath them. Right, now, in order to reassemble the shelves, I've made myself a jig here, just with some scrap wood, and the idea is to lay the cross pieces in here, drop the shelf slats in, and then I'll glue and pin these with some small nails. And once I've done that side, I'll swap it over and do the other end. But before I can do that, I really need to cut these slots in the end of here, and I've already got my Festool set up to do that. Here I'm marking the position for the domino slots, remembering that the slots are actually off-centered. When you mark from one face and turn the wood around, you then have to mark from the opposite side. If you don't, they won't be lined up properly. And there you are, you've cut 2 half slots in one go. Now I'll continue marking out the rest of the shelf supports and cutting their slots. And before you know it, they're all done. Right, making sure we've got the slot offset to the outside edge, we can put it in there, give it a pretty liberal coat of glue. I use Evo stick. I've used it for years and years. It's a nice consistency, it's not runny like some glues I can think of. Yeah, it's not too thick either. Good. So we pop that in there, lay these on the top. It's always a good idea just to rub the joints very slightly. That helps to smear the glue around and it gives it a little bit of what I call stiction. You can feel it. If you try and lift it, it's actually trying to lift the bottom piece up as well. So, with a bit of luck, with my nail gun, which I haven't used for years, we'll pop in a few 1-inch nails. That needs adjusting, so they'll go in a bit further. There is such a thing as a hammer. Great. We can wipe off the excess glue. Damp cloth is all you need. See if there's any on this end. So that is the first one done. Once again, clean up the ends. That looks great. Right, I had to dash indoors and wash the glue out of the brush, give the cloth a rinse. I think what I'll do is I'm going to clamp them all together. I'm sure they don't particularly need it, but I've got the opportunity, I suppose. Right, those are done. I guess the next thing to do is to start on the uprights. But first, I have to go inside and make tea for my dear old Ma. Because it's coronavirus time. I don't know how many days we are into it in the UK. We're certainly into our second week of lockdown. And I have my dear old 97-year-old mum living with me for the foreseeable future. And I'm looking after her, so I don't get too much time to come in here. Still, I'm not really complaining. Yes, I am complaining a little bit because I'd much rather be in here than be inside. But it's time to go and make Mum a cup of tea and give her a piece of cake. I shall do the same, and with a bit of luck, I'll be back here in 10 minutes. Now I'm going to turn my attention to the four corners of the bookcase, the vertical pieces. And I was wondering what to use, and I came across a lot of this in my workshop. It's actually carcassing material, and it's nominally 2.5 by 1.5 inches. So I thought, since I've got plenty of long lengths of this would be a good thing to use. I've set out my 4 long lengths, and I've clamped them all together, and I'm just busy marking out the exact position for the shelves and where to put the dominoes in them. So what I've done, I've used my box file as my guide and worked out the spacing between the bottom shelf and the one immediately above the box file, which is 420 millimeters or 42 centimeters, and I've just transferred that along the length of the board. So at every 42 centimeters I'm going to be drilling a slot for the domino, and then I'll also put one midway between those. So I've got the option then to move shelves around if I want to, or put more shelves in perhaps. Right, the next step is to cut all these slots, just like this one here. Now I've got the machine already set up, and there's an attachment that fits to the bottom of it that will run along the length of timber like this, you see. And I turn it around that way, maybe you'll see a bit better. So I've set this up already. I can sit the machine on like that. I'll take my hands off, it's perfectly stable. it'll sit there. I've marked an oval where I'm actually going to put the slot, and the line 15mm from it is going to line up with the base plate of the tool. So I just slide that up. I can see that's absolutely lined up. I don't have to worry whether it's centered or not, because that's what this plastic jig on the underside does. So all I have to do is connect up the dust extraction, and it will happily cut the slot. Now there's one thing I haven't done, which I need to do, and that's to change the depth of the cut, and that's how far the cutter here will protrude. There's a scale on here, and it's a stop basically, so you can have the drill bit plunge up to 70mm. In this case I just want the minimum, which for this machine is 15mm. So having set that, so I line this up, hook the hose onto it, switch on and plunge. There is the first of several holes. All I've got to do now is work my way along, so it's really, really quick and easy from now on. Great, they're all cut. I've not made any mistakes, they're all in line, which is which is very good. Now the next thing to do is actually to cut the dominoes. I've got a whole load of these, 140mm long they are. I bought these originally for my oak garage doors. I have cut these off, and they're 10mm across. So that will just sit in there, and this will act as a really good peg, a locating peg, yet allow me to take the shelves out. Here I'm cutting the long dominoes into the shorter length that I need. You'll notice that I'm using a push stick to hold the dominoes in place. I really don't want to get my fingers that close to the blade. So they're all cut. I just need to round the ends over on the sander. The cross pieces between the uprights need a domino slot in the end, and as you can see I've done most of them. And that's what they look like when they're finished. Each upright needs 3 corresponding slots. Back in the workshop, it's time to glue the uprights. All I need to do is check for square, clamp them up, wipe away the excess glue, and get on with the second one. Right, let's check and see if it's square. Well, they've glued up overnight, So I'm just going to give them a bit of a light sand, get rid of all the pencil marks and some of the writing that's along the timber as well. I think even though I'm outside and I hope the dust will just blow away, I'd be best to put a safety mask on. There's just time to try the assembly while there's a little bit of evening light. Success! I've realised that I should add some diagonal bracing to the back. I've managed to find some white primed MDF slats which do the job quite nicely. I realised that I didn't have any metal brackets to use as supports for the shelving. I have a cunning plan. I found some copper tube, 22mm copper pipe, that's surplus to requirements. It has been used and it's just sitting around. So I've cut a length and flattened it. And that's what I'm going to do with this. Got to improvise somehow. And there we have two strips of metal. I've just got to file the ends a little bit smoother, and then we'll put a bend in them and drill some fixing holes. Well, I've made my brackets up and I've been thinking how to fix these to the rear uprights, and I came across some sash window screw locks, and I think I could make use of these. There's three parts, so what I'm going to do is discard that piece and just use these. I'll fix that piece into my rearmost upright, turn this pin round and screw it in that way, and this pin will go through a hole in this bracket, so it'll sit something like that. Maybe it's easier if I put it that way around. Imagine there's a hole in there and this pin has gone through that hole, so all I want to do when I want to take the bookcase out, I just unscrew that by hand and take the bookcase away. And to fix it again, I pop this through the hole, and I think that will be more than sufficient at stopping the bookcase from falling forwards. Here it is in place, and you'll see that the right hand side is hard up against one of the ventilation pipes. In fact, it was pushing so hard that the shelving unit wouldn't actually stand up properly. So I've had to take the jigsaw to it and just cut a little curved piece out of it. So now it fits perfectly well. Finally, the last one. And we're done. So there we are, that's the shelving finished and in place. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, click the like button and you're welcome to leave me a comment down below. Also consider subscribing. It won't cost you a penny, but it'll encourage me to make more of these videos. I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.